Hello, New Mexico, and welcome to another episode of Around the Roundhouse, a podcast featuring the policies, politics, and personalities of the land of enchantment. I'm your host, Daniel Chacón. Our guest this week is Harry Montoya, who is running for Santa Fe County Magistrate Judge as a member of the newly formed Forward Party, which received its minor party status from the state earlier this year. Mr. Montoya previously served as a member of the Pojoaque School Board, as well as a two-term Santa Fe County Commissioner. During his tenure at the county, he represented New Mexico on the National Association of Counties Board of Directors. Mr. Montoya, who is recognized as an authority on substance abuse prevention, will face off against Democrat Michael Roybal this November. Mr. Montoya, bienvenido, and thank you for joining us today.
Bueno, gracias. Buenos días. Glad to be with you, Daniel.
Mr. Montoya, I'm curious what interests you about magistrate court. Why are you setting your sight on serving in that court?
Yeah, Daniel, I believe that, magistrate court is an important position. It's one of the only positions in the state that doesn't require a law degree. And, my background, I have a master's in counseling psychology, and I believe that the work that I've done in the community leads well to this job as a magistrate judge. I believe that a magistrate judge, we need to be fair, we need to be accessible, and we need to represent what the values in our community are. And I believe that I've done that over the years of my service as a school board member and as a county commissioner.
Mr. Montoya, for folks who may not be familiar with what magistrate court does, what kind of cases would you take on as a magistrate court judge?
Yeah, we would look at a lot of things, Daniel, like domestic violence, property disputes between, landlord, tenant, look at some domestic violence issues that could come before the court. And I would say, and I tend to categorize it as more of a domestic type court in terms of the violations that people encounter when they come to magistrate court.
And kind of what have I know you spoke about your experience, but what have you done to prepare for this position should you be elected this November?
Yeah, well, a lot of reading, a lot of reading of the judicial code, the statutes, and kind of, brushing up on exactly what it is that I'll be making decisions on as a magistrate judge. And there's tons of reading that, oh my gosh, I barely scratched the surface, in terms of what it is that we'll be dealing with on the magistrate court. So, I think that from what I'm looking at, really what we need to do is just, enforce the laws as they currently are. And people ask me exactly what you just said. What are you going to do? And I'm going to, I'm going to be fair. I'm not, I will be impartial in terms of, both the individual, the victim, and, the potential, for example, between the landlord and the tenant, won't be partial one way or the other, but really look at what the merits are that each one has to present before making a decision. And again, that decision will be based on, factual evidence that'll be given to us, as part of the court proceeding. So, and that's where I value, I think, and have those values of integrity, respect, and the compassionate care that we need to present and give to these individuals who come to magistrate court.
Mr. Montoya, as you noted earlier, only a high school diploma or equivalent is a requirement for the job. Do you think that magistrate court judges should have to be attorneys? Why or why not? Or have a law degree?
Yeah, I don't think one of the things, and I'll add common sense to the things that need to be brought forward. I think a lot of times common sense is missing, and my dad used to say, common sense is not so common. And I think you see a lot of things these days, and that's kind of exactly how things seem to be. And I think a common sense approach, which sometimes, I mean, I have a lot of attorney friends, and I think this is the people's court, if you will, for the people. And when you move on to, district and, Supreme, the appeals courts, those tend to be a little bit different than, it's pretty cut and dry in terms of what those cases are going to be and how they're going to be, and more of them are criminal also. So this one is more, before the criminal element is, other than some of the DWI stuff. Of course, some of those are just statutorily criminal already. So those are the laws that have to be enforced and looked at in terms of what is the sentence that you're going to give to that individual. And they're pretty much prescribed nowadays in terms of what the DWI's laws are. And I think that common sense approach, not necessarily, not that attorneys don't have common sense, but sometimes, it's black or white. There's not any sort of flexibility in between in terms of what can be done in terms of the sentencing. So I think in the wisdom of when the laws were implemented for the development of magistrate judges, I think that leaving that to kind of a everyday person, and an individual, it was a good thing, good thing for the people to not necessarily have to go to uh, a higher court where you're going to be dealing with attorneys all the time. And with magistrate court now, even, you still are dealing with attorneys with certain cases, because that's just we're in a litigious world and a litigious society. And we just as a magistrate, I just want to bring common sense to the bench.
But at the same time, interpretation of the law will be required. So if I can
Yeah.
perhaps restate my question, or maybe you did answer it, but do you think a law degree would, or being an attorney would be a benefit for folks that appear in magistrate court?
Yeah. No, I don't think you necessarily have to have a law degree. I think, and again, you mentioned, the statutes, they're pretty much, cut and dry, black and white. This is the penalty that an individual is going to get based on what the state statute is. And I think, as, someone who you have to be literate for sure. I mean, in terms of being able to interpret the laws and read the laws and what they say, and then apply them. And that's where, again, to me, that common sense comes into play.
Okay.
So
Your
no, we don't need to be an attorney.
Okay, thank you for answering that. Your opponent in November has filled various roles in both district and magistrate court over the years. He currently works in pretrial services at district court. Uh, what experience, judicial or otherwise, makes you the better choice?
Yeah. Well, I haven't just worked in, researching what these cases are, actually have served in a quasi judicial role with the Santa Fe County Commission.
Mhm.
So, we have had cases that have come before us where we had to decide on that certain case, what it is that and how we're going to decide. So I have that quasi judicial experience already. It's not just, as I said, just looking up cases, it's actually deciding and making the decision on a specific case that would come before us. So, that experience I've had, and I think that'll be, and that's something that people, can look back at in terms of those cases that we had on the Santa Fe County Commission.
Switching topics here a little bit, Mr. Montoya, your resume states that you
Sure.
are currently employed at Rio Rancho based Nava and Associates. Exactly what do you do?
Yeah, well, I'm a consultant with Nava and Associates, and the work that we're doing is trying to do water cleanup. As you know, and people in New Mexico know, that water is, agua es la vida. It is our life. Without water, we have nothing. And I think it's especially important now when we've seen this drought that we've just experienced. I don't, in all my life, Daniel, I don't remember ever having seen it this dry in my life. It has been scary, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
And what we have in New Mexico, we have a lot of produced water that can be reused for other uses. And what we're trying to work uh, with the New Mexico Environment Department and with other federal and state agencies is looking at how can we clean this water up for reuse. Can we use it for agricultural purposes? Can we use it for, we have a lot of sometimes fresh water that's going to uh, pat down dust, when they're doing construction projects, so we can reuse what we've already got. And we've had some great discussions. And my role primarily with Nava and Associates is the intergovernmental affairs person, having had the experience with state government, federal government, and, a lot of it being through uh, my roles in Santa Fe County Commission, and also when I was working at Hands Across Culture. So it was a good fit, and we're moving forward in terms of trying to get these projects off the ground, and God willing, have some water that we can reuse and not just have it waste away. And a lot of that water is down in the Permian Basin, but we have a lot of it throughout the state as well.
And would you put your consultancy on hold if you were elected?
Oh, absolutely. I would leave the consultancy. Yeah, I would. Being a magistrate judge is a full-time position. I would 100% devote my resources, my attention, and my livelihood to being a magistrate judge.
Let's talk about politics a
They,
little
they
bit.
can they can do without me. They can do without me.
Okay. Well, what I've found out is that we're all replaceable, to be honest with you.
Exactly. My dad told me that a long time ago. He said, "Don't think he told me, don't ever think you're indispensable."
There you go. Although I will put in a plug for myself, nobody can be Daniel Chacón. Mr.
Oh, you're the
Montoya,
one and only.
let's talk about politics. You've been a Democrat, you've been a Republican. Why the Forward Party? What drew you to the Forward Party?
Yeah. Well, our motto, if you will, is, it's not left and we're not right, but we're forward. And the thing that I like about the Forward Party is that it's not about the party, it's about the people. Having been, in the organized party system of both being a Democrat and a Republican, it becomes where your whole existence becomes your one or the other. You can't, kind of go between the philosophies and uh, the ideologies of both parties. And the Forward Party allows you to do that as an individual. It allows you to be your own person. It doesn't, have you, prescribe these are the tenets of which you're going to follow, and this is how you're going to operate. It's again, it was started by a Democrat and a Republican. Democrat being Andrew Yang out of New York. He ran for president a few years ago, and former Governor Whitman out of New Jersey. And they saw that, and I think when you look at the politics nowadays, Daniel, you see that there's probably about 20% on both sides, and the right and the left, that they're not going to move, they're not going to budge. And then the rest of us are in this decline to state. I mean, that's the biggest party. It's not a party, but it's the biggest categorization of voters now. And they're mostly dissatisfied Democrats, disgruntled Republicans that just have had it with both parties. So the Forward Party is an alternative for people to look at, and I would encourage people to look at, and nmforward.com, and they will be able to see exactly what the Forward Party stands for. And I just believe that I, as an individual, do not fit into the mold of being a Democrat or a Republican anymore. But it's more of my ideology of being a servant for the people.
Mr. Montoya, I think when I spoke with you recently, I mentioned that every time that I drive through Pojoaque, I see a faded campaign sign from your congressional bid. um, has public service, I mean, what, you've run for various offices and won some and not others. But what is
Right.
it about why elective office? Why have you sought this in your life?
Yeah, Daniel, I guess I've had that servant heart in terms of, wanting to see what I can do to make people's lives better. And that's why I've sought these positions. It has not been about, self gratification, but selflessness in terms of, what can be done to help, people in different circumstances. It was surely that way on the school board when I ran for school board. I wanted to ensure that our children had an education that they're going to be able to survive in the world. And then when I ran for county commission, there was a lot of issues, and still are a lot of issues regarding land use and people being able to utilize their property for their siblings, or even for their offspring, so that their children and grandchildren, great grandchildren, be able to uh, essentially have the fruits of what their antepasados, their ancianos, their grandparents, great grandparents had for them. And I'm one of those, Daniel. I actually live on the property of my great grandfather that has been in the family for close to 100 years now, and certainly we need to have, and that's what I proposed and worked on when I was in the commission, laws and ordinances that are favorable to allowing people to maintain and stay on the lands that they've had for generations now. So, I've always had that servant, I guess, attitude, that servant heart of wanting to just do something for the people, and work with them, and for them, because you do work for them once they elect you. Essentially, they're hiring you for that position, and it's an honor. It's been humbling, and I've enjoyed the time that I have been in public service.
Okay. Before you got into public service, I wanted to ask about your post-secondary education, because in reading your bio, you started your at Trinidad State Junior College in Colorado, but then earned a full basketball scholarship to Westmar College in Iowa. How did that happen? Were you a big basketball star in high school?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. I would say that I was pretty good. God gifted me with the talent to play basketball, and did pretty well. My senior in high school, I actually led the state in scoring in AAA, in class AAA. We were 3A back then in Pojoaque, and that's how I was able to get a scholarship first to Trinidad. Played there 1 year, and then transferred to Westmar College, which was a 4-year institution. And back in those days, it was equivalent to New Mexico Highlands, Western New Mexico, Eastern New Mexico, same type size of college and classification. So yeah, I did okay, and I thank God every day for giving me that ability, because I was able to get my education through
Mhm.
playing basketball, and not having to walk out with a $50,000 student loan.
Yeah, yeah. What position did you play, and did you ever think that, "Hey, could I play professionally?"
Yeah. Well, I played point guard, and I professionally, probably definitely not the NBA. I mean, that's why I was too short. 5'10" was what would you call it? Kind of I'm trying to think of the word, but it was definitely not to my advantage being so short.
Yeah.
Uh, but later on, playing, in leagues and stuff after graduating from college, it was a compliment. And I don't know if you remember Phil Smith. He was a former UNM Lobo, and he used to live up here in the Espanola area. And we used to play against each other quite a bit. And he asked me one time, "Have you ever considered playing down in the Mexican League, down professional ball down there?" And I thought, I don't think so. I got a wife and 2 kids, and that's my priority right now. But I thought that was a compliment. I mean, I took that as a huge compliment coming from a former Lobo, and never pursued it. But I don't know. It was just one of those things that, life is a lot about timing, and
Mhm.
timing at that point was my wife and my 2 kids.
Well, then let's turn it back to the race. What makes the timing now right for you to seek a position at magistrate court?
Yeah. I think, I've been retired for 3 years, and I've got a lot of work done around the house, which my wife has been grateful, and there's still a lot more that needs to be done. But I think I'm ready to, I want to give back, to the community, to the county again. And it's just the point where I need to be active. And I see this as a really good position in trying to help people, because a lot of the people that come into magistrate court, a lot of them are dealing with mental health issues, with poverty, with substance abuse, addiction issues. And, a lot of times it's not, really, sentencing them to something without giving them some help as well. And that's really where I've come from in terms of my background working in the area of substance abuse prevention and seeing the need for, and I still have a hand in a lot of what the behavioral health reform initiative is doing now through Senate Bill 3 and the work that's being done in Santa Fe County, Rio Arriba County, and Los Alamos County, working with that group to ensure that there are these services for the people that are going through the courts, so that it's not always about, what the situation is going to be, where we should be looking for alternative sources and resources to help these people out, to give them a hand up, not a handout, but a hand up. And that's where I really believe that we can help, and I can help some of these people that are experiencing those mental health and substance abuse issues.
And before you get there, you have to reach out to voters. So what have you been doing are you knocking on doors? What's your strategy?
Yes, I've been on the phone, making a lot of calls. That's been, the primary strategy that I'm working on. Today, we're going to be meeting with a group of us that are going to be going over the walk plan. So we are going to be starting to knock on doors here within the next couple of weeks. And then, just, the reality of politics, Daniel and I, this is the part that I don't like, is that you need to raise money to be able to get your message out there.
Right.
And that's just the reality. A friend of mine told me, money is the mother milk of politics. And boy, I took me a while to believe that. But there's been a race, the treasurer's race that I last ran in 2022. I mean, I lost that race statewide by 4%. And what I paid per vote was about 19 cents. And just in comparison, what Ronchetti paid was $26. You know, I was the highest vote getter of any Republican that ran at that time for a statewide office. And, so you see that if you don't have the funding to be able to get your name out there, it's a little difficult to have people to say, well, I'm going to vote for that person because this is what they stand for. And that's exactly what it is that we're going to, raise the money for, is to get, some messaging out there so that people know who Harry Montoya is.
Okay. Well, I know you have a campaign website, so do you want to plug that before we close
Sure.
out?
Absolutely. It's Montoya, and it's the number 4, Montoya4nm.org, O-R-G. And people can call me also, Daniel. I've got my cell number on that card, 505-920-0922. And I welcome, suggestions, questions, anything that I can get people to know who I am and what I'm about to communicate with me. I really appreciate that.
Okay. Well, Mr. Montoya, thank you for joining us. And as always, thank you to our viewers and listeners for tuning into Around the Roundhouse. And a special thank you to our producer, Matt Daltside, who is the behind the scenes man who makes this podcast flow smoothly every week. So my thanks to Matt. Join us every week as we talk to newsmakers in the political realm by subscribing through Apple, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. For the latest developments, including our coverage of the November election, including the race for magistrate court judge, follow our coverage online at santafenewmexican.com, where you can also subscribe to our political newsletter, The Roundhouse Report. Until next time, I'm Daniel Chacón, and this has been Around the Roundhouse.